Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/TIFU. In today's episode, TIFU by writing a 1984 essay that was mistaken as a suicide note. TIFU by not socializing my dog to wheelchairs. TIFU by eating crumbs off of my bed. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. TIFU by writing a 1984 essay that was mistaken as a suicide note. This happened in the school year, but I am still wincing every time I think about what happened. So, at the time, I was in an advanced 10th grade literature class that began reading 1984 by George Orwell. While in my veterinary class, I started writing a short summary of the chapter in which Orwell was describing how nobody could actually love or trust each other. However, the only paper I had on me was a sheet that my teacher handed back to us every day, but she never actually read it. I used the back of this paper to quickly jot down my thoughts and a rough draft of my summary, thinking that my teacher wouldn't mind. Well, I was wrong. In the summary, I wrote about how effed up the society was, that love and security were an illusion, and how Winston, the protagonist, felt responsible for the way his mother had died. It was messy and rough, really just a way to put my thoughts on paper. I genuinely thought nothing of the blob until the next day, when I arrived at the tech school. Halfway through class, I was pulled out into the hallway and eventually escorted to the counselor's office. I must be honest, I was about ready to crap myself. It was horrifying. I had never gotten in trouble before, ever. When we arrived at his office, the counselor confronted me with the paper my first draft was on, the same piece of paper that my teacher had collected. He questioned me about my life and demanded an explanation of my supposed cry for help. Both my teacher and counselor, apparently, didn't understand my references to the book and believed what I wrote was my actual opinion on actual society. They took it as the ramblings of a suicidal student, writing about how nobody loved them. Both of them didn't know if it was a suicide note, a confession, some kind of manifesto, or something else entirely. By now, I was significantly less afraid and more so confused. When I was able to wrap my mind over it, I kind of started laughing. I think this actually scared the counselor even more, because he was still under the assumption I was depressed or, at least, disturbed. I explained to him that it was just an essay draft and he didn't believe me. I guess he never read the book himself? It was just strange. He even had me pull up the completed, final draft of the summary on my laptop. After looking over it, a couple of other chapter summaries, and some more things generally relating to my book report, I think he finally believed me. He handed me back my computer and basically went whoopsies before just walking away. Like, what? I still struggle to grasp with what happened. Especially since everything went back to normal right afterwards. Neither my teacher nor counselor ever mentioned it again. It was just bizarre how my teacher never mentioned anything to me. I'm just glad that I was able to back up that it was only supposed to be a 1984 essay. I wrote a drunken post on Facebook one night when I was staying with my brother. His wife, who hated me, read it while I was still sleeping and called the paramedics and told them I was suicidal. I ended up spending a week in a mental hospital wearing pajamas and eating Jell-O over a Facebook post. It's real. Hope your brother found a new wife. Yikes. I hope you're doing okay, and hopefully that didn't mess up your life too badly. I can imagine that ruining some relationships or causing you to lose your job, that kind of stuff. 7th year, I showed a friend a poem I liked. I just thought it was sweet and I liked poetry. Next day, the deputy principal had pulled me out of class to talk to me. I honestly did not pay attention to anything she was saying because I was confused. Wasn't until right at the end I realized it was all because they thought I was going to off myself. I honestly had never thought about it. It was all weird to me. I stopped showing people poems after that. Man, I feel that. I was an introverted loner who wrote a lot in middle school and my shit was constantly getting called out, too. I remember writing a short story where this disabled kid in a wheelchair got bullied by some other kids, but eventually went on to compete in the Paralympics. The teacher talked to my mom at the next parent-teacher conference because he was worried that I was a bully, as if that was the only way one could know how bullies talk about others. You know who else hears a lot of how bullies talk? The people they bully. Guess which of the two I was? Sometimes administration is so oblivious, it's unreal. That's wild. Since when are bullies self-aware enough to write a story in which their victims overcome them? Also, who would do that? When I was 10, my mom thought I must be suicidal because I listened to a CD with Bohemian Rhapsody on repeat. I just really liked Bohemian Rhapsody. It might be a bit of an absurd misunderstanding, but kudos to the staff for taking their duty of care seriously and wanting to intervene in a situation they thought was potentially life-threatening for a student. Imagine if they found a genuine suicide note but brushed it off as being fictional / about something else. It would have most certainly been far worse than the temporary embarrassment that this resulted in. Exactly this. This certainly could have been a cry for help, and someone heard it and acted. Bravo to your teacher. Agreed, but it depends on the spirit in which they approached OP. If they were really confronting and demanding in a CYA way rather than ensuring a student got the support they needed. I mean, while it probably was weird, I do appreciate an attentive teacher just being precautious about it. I took a creative writing class in high school and I feel like my teachers should have realized the signs of all my stories ending with the protagonist killing themselves. TIFU by not socializing my dog to wheelchairs. Happened today. My sweet 3-year-old rough collie, Mimi, is an absolute sweetheart. I got her as a puppy at 10 weeks, and read all about socializing them as much as possible when they're young. So that's what we did. Big dogs, small dogs, kids, people with beards, guys, gals, kids, puppies, old dogs, cats, I tried to cover it all. For you puppy owners out there, don't do this until they'd had their shots. And it worked. She's a spunky, chill girl, and even tries to make friends with dogs that actively snarl at her LOL. She goes up to everyone on walks, tail always wagging, because she loves people. She's a sweetheart. Unless they're in wheelchairs. I live in a city, and was going to get ice cream with a friend. I tied up my dog outside the store, and proceed to go inside to order. Within 5 minutes, I hear deep barks. Now my dog barks, but not like that. She has a relatively light bark, unless something is seriously wrong. So the moment I hear it, I tell the cashier to wait a sec as I run outside to see what's going on. And she's barking, tail between her legs, loudly, at a guy being pushed in a wheelchair by what I assume to be his partner. That's when it dawned on me. She had never seen a wheelchair. I rush over to my dog, apologizing profusely. They don't seem too bothered by it, sorta awkwardly laughing. The lady proceeds to push the wheelchair past us, and as she does, smiles, looks at Mimi and says, it's okay, he doesn't like it either. /3. I felt so embarrassed. So, if anyone has any suggestions on how to fix an ableist dog, I'm all ears. I am a wheelchair user, and this is really common. Some dogs just don't like wheels, and other dogs just I think can't make sense of what's happening there and how I'm two things at once. It's hard to socialize dogs to wheelchairs unless you know at least one wheelchair user. There's an organization that trains assistance dogs which often brings them to my street. I live in front of a park, and I always ask them what they'd like me to do. They usually have me roll past a few times just to show the dog I'm not a threat or concern. Staffies, however, have the all-time record for just realizing I am essentially a mobile lap and climbing in red heart. A Jack Russell pissed on my wheel once, not so keen on that. The human was mortified, I just rinsed it off with my water bottle. We, light-skinned and short, inadvertently found out one of our parrots is racist when we brought over a tall black friend and she immediately cowered in a corner going into a full defensive pose as soon as he walked by her cage. I realized my dog was racist when we met my black neighbors not long after I brought him home, maybe a month. It was the first time he lost his shit, but not the last. Every time he saw them until they moved a few months later, he freaked. He's had a couple trainers, fixed a ton of behaviors, but never that one. It's so odd. I always yell at him once we get in the house, like, "Who taught you to behave like that? You didn't learn that from me." Actually, it could be just that your friend is tall, as I'm short, and my dogs fear my tall cousin when they don't see him for a while, lol. Oh no. That's so sad. Does she have the same issue with bikes? It may be the wheels that bothered her. Nope, not bikes. Skateboards, bikes, she's all okay with. Used to be scared of bikes, but has seen enough of theme that it doesn't faze her at all anymore. If you're looking to desensitize her, theme parks might have rentable wheelchairs you could use. You could sit in it to show her, or even have her sit in it. I can top this. You can't prepare a dog for every possibility. I had a really good friend in college who I ended up hanging out in her family home a good bit, as she was local and I was halfway across the country from my family. I use a wheelchair in public but walk in my arms in most people's houses, so we don't have to lug the chair upstairs or have to move furniture or anything like this. My friend had a dog ally. A little schnauzer. Who loved me as long as I was sitting on the floor or couch. The second I stood on my arms when I needed to move, she would run away and freak out. This dog knew I was supposed to have legs. See if you can get your hands on a used wheelchair. People sell them for various reasons, and use it around the house. Get your dog used to seeing it. Have a friend push you around in it with your dog watching. Then call up nearby hospitals, veterans organizations, even nursing homes. Explain that your dog barks at wheelchair users and you want to socialize her to them. If your dog is otherwise friendly, and it sounds like she is, some people will enjoy the visit. If you get the go-ahead, take your dog there, always leashed of course, and let people pet her. If she reacts negatively to anyone in a wheelchair, take her back home and try again another day. If doesn't react negatively, give her a treat. That's a good idea. Not sure about buying one because I live in an apartment with not much space, but contacting some organizations is a good idea. We actually had this exact training while my dog and I were working on our therapy certification. She was a little hesitant around the wheelchair, and I figured out it was more the sounds plus smell combo. If you're in the US and call ahead, most REIs are happy to let you walk in and train. Their bicycle section was perfect for wheels, still and moving, and the smells associated, so she was way calmer in class. Good luck and good job working on so many things. Everyone gets surprised by something goofy. Ours was horses on a hiking trail. Apparently they're big fascinating deer, and that wasn't great. Riders were so thoughtful and polite while I got her well away from them. TIFU by eating crumbs off of my bed. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, you know when you're not hungry but just like chewing on stuff? And that stuff happens to be old crumbs on your plate? That's what I do all the time. It's a weird habit, I know, but that's what I do. Sometimes those crumbs have fallen next to the plate. Most of the time I don't eat those, unless they are big enough to annoy me. I like my bed semi-clean, or at least the illusion of nothing being there. I also have a cat who likes to sit on my bed. Now this would be reason alone to stop eating crumbs, but I am unfortunately a dirty B***tch, so I keep at it. For work I teach Dutch online, and that was what I was doing today as well. Before I started I had eaten a healthy amount of bread and there were plenty of crumbs to nibble on. While talking with my student I was eating some and I noticed a bigger one next to the plate. Absent-mindedly I grabbed it, put it in my mouth, and it wasn't crunchy. It was sandy. And coarse. And very clearly not a crumb. Nope. It was a piece of cat litter. A fresh piece my cat just brought over from the litter box outside my room. I might stop eating crumbs now, yeah. Welp, that's enough Reddit for today. Thanks. I brushed the crumbs off my bed and I thought that was pretty gross. LOL, you one-upped me here. It kind of got started because of chocolate. If I don't find them, I'll get stains. And if you find them, you might as well eat them. Once a friend and I were working on a computer while smoking a bowl of weed. He hands it to me and I take it without looking and light it, take a big hit. Suddenly I was coughing so hard I was just about barfing. He had taken a random ball of dog hair off the floor and put in there as a joke. My friend was laughing so hard he was crying, but trying to apologize at the same time. He thought I would notice the hairball before lighting it. That asshole is still one of my best friends. LOL. You know when you're not hungry but just like chewing on stuff? And that stuff happens to be old crumbs on your plate? Nope, I don't know that. I do. Put food near me, I munch. It's a curse, especially with sweets. I had yeeted stuff, usually bags of sweets, across the room to get it away from myself. Happens with pizza crust, crumbs from having eaten said pizza. I call it boredom hunger. I'm currently learning Dutch and have been hesitating to sign up for tutoring due to a bit of social anxiety. I would genuinely love to learn with someone that I know has eaten cat litter. That is just a hell of an icebreaker, LMAO, so if you're open to new students, please let me know. Well, we could figure something out. I'm now teaching people from LIDL, but I'm self-employed, so send me a PM and we can see if we can set something up. This will also make the best story to tell friends about how you found your teacher. I'm gonna be honest. This has happened to me before, too. Thought I picked up a piece of food, like cupcake, I think, from my bed. It was not food. It was a cat litter crumb brought over by my cat who peed on her feet in the box and had Crispies stuck to her foot, which she left around the place. It was only last year and my brain tried to forget about it, while also training me to be more careful about what I pick up. LOL. Well, you're welcome for the reminder. I like the term Crispies after peeing on her feet. Won't they be muddies after? Or was it dry like mine? As soon as you brought your cat into this story, I knew you were gonna eventually eat cat poop by the end of it. LOL. Now you have the cat poop parasite that increases risk of schizophrenia. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.